The location of the wormwood strike. Now in Revelation 8, starting verse 10, we get the introduction of wormwood, which is, again, it's going to strike when the majority of us are already in the Exodus. So to most of us it won't really have a bearing. But given the fact that he's given us information on this, we should be able to get at least a good proximity of where wormwood should strike. So let's kind of walk through things, what I'll say somewhat logically. If it's going to strike a third of the rivers, and it's also going to strike the springs, it doesn't say a third of the springs, just it also strike the springs. The third of the rivers is really the only quantifier that we have. And so for this, we almost need definitions, which we don't have. So in other words, the creek that's behind your house, is it listed as in the same vein and in the same number as the Amazon River or the Nile or the Tigris? You know, are we going by flow, the flow rate of these things, and dealing with it that way, 1/3, or is it just a simple mathematical 1/3? And even if it is, I still think we can really pin down a good area. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have it where we can get it correct, but we can get very close to it. And the reason for it is this. We have 7 continents. It's not going to strike Antarctica. We don't have to worry about that. We can wipe that out. I don't think Antarctica has a single river, so it's not a problem. It's not going to strike Australia. Australia is basically a walking desert, so we can strike that out of the mix. And realistically, it's not going to strike Africa, because while Africa has the Nile and it has the Congo River, those are the major rivers that it has. The Congo actually has a much greater flow than the Nile River. But because the majority of Africa is a desert, you're never going to reach 1/3 with Africa, so we can toss that. That leaves only North and South America and Europe and Asia. Asia's an interesting situation as well, because we can actually take, if we consider that Asia is a box or a rectangle, we can divide, and probably best to say it like a rectangle, we can divide it up into 4 quadrants. And the bottom left quadrant is a desert, because it's not going to strike Saudi Arabia. What river is going to hit in Saudi Arabia? Same thing for, and again, you can say Iraq, it's got the Tigris and Euphrates, but other than that, everything through Iraq is a desert. Afghanistan, desert. Going all the way up Pakistan, for the most part, a desert. And then we have the northern quadrant, where most of it is Mongolia, and it's a desert. Okay, so it really leaves Southeast Asia, which is basically a rainforest, so it has a lot of water, and we have the upper area, basically what I'll say is Ukraine and most of the population for Russia. Those are the 2 areas there. Europe is only 6% of the landmass of the world, so it doesn't have that much landmass, but it does have a lot of rivers. So if we include Europe and Asia, northern section where Russia is, that's certainly a potential. Okay, so let's just say we've got that, we have North America, we've got South America, but those aren't in equal portions by any means, because again, a huge section is Southeast Asia, because they've got a rainforest. In fact, the 3 major rainforests in the world are the Amazon, the Congo, which is larger than Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia. But so from those 3 areas, and if we look at just on flow rate, and looking at the list of rivers that have a flow rate over 2,000 cubic meters per second, basically something about the size where it could fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool every single second. There are, I'm going to say, right around 160 rivers in the world that have a flow rate higher than that. 35% of those come from the Amazon. And realize that the Congo is, by flow rate, is the second highest flow rate. So the fact that we can kind of knock that out, because there's nothing else other than the Nile and the Congo basically in Africa, because so much of it is desert, it would have to be so restrictive for that, so it can't really hit 1/3 with the waters if it's doing Africa. And so because of that, I would certainly think it is going to be South America. Well, I'll say Central and South America. Now, does that mean I'm right? No. Could it hit North America? Sure it could. The southwest portion of America is basically a desert as well. So it's not going to really do that much if it hits Arizona or Texas. And again, same thing with Utah. It's basically a desert environment. Now the northeast part of the United States, around Seattle, Washington, Calgary, Canada portion, that's a rainforest. It's a temperate rainforest, so it certainly has a lot of water there, and certainly on the east coast of the United States, there's plenty of water. So we have the possibility. It's just not that likely to get to 1/3, but it is a possibility. The other one that is very high as a possibility would be Europe, as well as the northwest section of Asia, Moscow area through there. Those are possibilities. If I were betting on it, I would be betting South America, just because of the amount of flow there. If you look at the map and you see the Amazon, it's got branches all over the place. The Amazon River has a flow rate. The next highest flow rate is the Congo, and it's around 40, I want to say 40 or 60,000 cubic meters a second. The Amazon is over 200, so it dwarfs everything else. And even when we do the deletion of the rivers, again, if we were to add all the rivers up, the major rivers, many of them will flow into one of the major rivers in South America. It'll flow into the Amazon. So we have to deduct that from our equation. If we didn't, it would actually hit 50% of the major rivers are in South America. But once we deduct those, we actually get 35%, a little bit more than 35%. So again, I can't say it's going to be South America, but it's pretty, I would say it's likely, and that's all I can say is likely. It could hit Europe, northwest portion of Asia, and I would see that as almost justice if it did that, because we had the Holocaust up through there. So I don't have a problem with it hitting there. Of course, the people who left there, they went down to South America. The Nazis are really big into South America. So how many of them as a percentage, I don't know. Only the Creator knows, and He's doing His punishments the way He wants to do them, not the way that I'm determining is correct, because I don't have anything in here. But again, just as we're looking at it, those are the major areas and most likely areas it's going to hit.